nobody's really going to talk about this one, but I thought the Milwaukee Bucks had a pretty interesting week in regards to this team competing for a championship next season following their disappointing second-round exit by the Boston Celtics in 7 games. The Bucks have re-upped Pat Connaughton with a 3-year, $28.5 million extension. Also, a little bit of sad news for Milwaukee as it was announced that Chris Middleton underwent wrist surgery and could very well miss a couple games in the regular season. For those who don't know, Chris Middleton missed all of the Bucks' second round against Boston with a knee injury, and he missed, I think, the last couple games against Chicago as well with that same knee injury. So Chris is expected to be back early next season. No big concerns with the wrist injury, but hopefully that knee is all good to go. He did not go through surgery on the knee, but it did bring me here, right? A couple different things I want to talk about. For those who don't know, I am a Giannis guy. I'm a Los Angeles Lakers diehard. I wish we could get our hands on Giannis, but I do love Giannis. To me, as a guy that is trying to build my business from the ground up, literally, I'm in love with the Giannis story. I still love those from nothing to something stories. It used to be I could see those stories happening in the hoods of Baltimore, in the hoods of Chicago, Memphis, California, and Compton somewhere. We get these stories with athletes making a way for their families from nothing. Nowadays, most of the American-born athletes, they come from middle to high-class America, which I'm not mad at, not one bit, but it is just different, and I can't relate to it as much as I used to back in the day. It's just hard to relate to some of these athletes who families are already well off, and they just make them weller off. The Giannis's of the world, the Joel Embiid's of the world, some of these guys that come from out of the country, the Nikola Jokic of the world, they really from nothing. All right, the new poor athlete comes from out of the country more times than not. Every now and then you got an American-born athlete that does embody that story. But for the most part, it comes from guys like Giannis. So I root for Giannis. I'm invested in the Milwaukee Bucks being great over the next decade because I do believe Giannis has a chance to go down as one of the 10 greatest players of all time. Now, he's got a long way to go to catch Shaquille O'Neal. He's got a long way to go to catch Shaquille O'Neal. But Giannis is in phenomenal shape, something that Shaq didn't have on his side at the end of his career, definitely. But oftentimes in the prime, Shaq was so great, even being out of shape, he was better than everybody else. The most dominant force ever to a lot of people. If Giannis can somehow, some way, put together 4 or 5 championships, maybe one day we have a conversation about Giannis or Shaquille O'Neal. How many championships would it take for Giannis to be looked at as greater than Hakeem Olajuwon all time? Has he already surpassed Hakeem? Some of these other great bigs, the Wilt Chamberlains of the world. Can Giannis pass by Bill Russell? Can we ever have a Giannis and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar conversation? Seriously. So I'm rooting for Giannis. I root for the greats of my generation to be great, but I'll keep it honest. If Giannis don't get a couple more rings, we can't have some of those conversations. Let's just be real here. I want the Bucks to be great as long as it ain't against my Lakers. My Bucks, though, via Giannis, are letting me down. Milwaukee, y'all got to do better by Giannis. You know, we have these conversations about why so many athletes are demanding out, and I think rightfully so with the guaranteed money that's present in the NBA, but we don't have the conversation the other side often. Yeah, there is a Steph Curry, and the Golden State Warriors are doing right by Steph, meaning putting guys like Kevin Durant around Steph, D'Angelo Russell around Steph, right? Like they're doing right by Curry by any means necessary, putting Andrew Wiggins around Steph, keeping Draymond Green around, paying whatever it takes to keep him happy. Going and drafting young, immensely talented guys like Jordan Poole, Jonathan Kuminga, James Wiseman, which either you can keep or you'll have them as assets to move for something else going forward. Steph is one scenario, though. Like, we got to start looking at a guy like Giannis who opted to stay in Milwaukee, could have went anywhere on the open market, opted to stay in Milwaukee. A guy like Bradley Beal, who was opting to stay in Washington. A guy like Damian Lillard, who's opting to stay in Portland. We got to question, what are these teams doing to help these guys out? After these guys commit themselves to your franchise, we know their body of work. We know they put it all into the game. It's all about what you can put around these guys, especially Giannis, who I look to be as an all-time great already. What are you going to put around this guy? Here's what we know about the Milwaukee Bucks, or what I believe to know about the Milwaukee Bucks. If you don't have Giannis Antetokounmpo, you probably make the playoffs, but you're definitely not winning the game in the first round. if you don't have Chris Middleton, I think we learned last year, as long as you got Giannis and Jrue Holiday, you're good enough to get to the second round of the playoffs, but you fell just that short in 7 games to the Boston Celtics. If you don't have Jrue Holiday and you just have Giannis and Chris, I believe you're good enough to not only make the playoffs, but get past the first round, get past the second round, get to the conference finals and be competitive. I don't believe you can get over the hump, though, without Jrue Holiday. So you need at least 2 stars around Giannis, or 1 all-star and borderline all-star in Middleton and Holiday around Giannis to get over the hump. But what I believe the Bucks need to do is go out and get more slashers, a couple more dogs. A lot of people don't talk about this, but I'm noticing a very nasty trend in Milwaukee where they only give clean-cut guys a look. I don't like that. If you look at the Bucks over the last decade, they've been a team that only goes after clean-cut. Again, obviously you want guys that you don't got to worry about what they doing at 2, 3 in the morning, whatever. But, I mean, just look at their roster over the last few years. They go after a certain type of guy, and I don't like that one bit. You got to be very well-spoken to make that Milwaukee Bucks roster. They don't got really any dogs in the organization. Arguably, the biggest dogs they got outside of Giannis, who's a dog, is Thanasis, his brother, and Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis, like, nobody in a bar is afraid of Bobby Portis. All due respect to him. I know he's 6'10", 6'11". Nobody's afraid of Bobby Portis. Right? All due respect to him. Nobody's afraid of Bobby Portis. Like, there is a certain type of guy the Bucks have been chasing over the last few years, and I do believe you could have very well used a guy that maybe is nowhere near as talented as Chris Middleton against the Boston Celtics, but a natural bucket getter, a guy that's unafraid of any moment. I'd say a J.R. Smith type of guy, for lack of a better example in this moment, as I'm shooting this video for you guys. You could have used a guy like that ain't afraid to go get you 18 points when J.R. Smith was stroking that thing. You could have used a guy like that in the second round of the playoffs against Boston. You didn't have those guys. All you had was spot-up shooters like a Pat Connaughton, who was very off, but still got a big deal, by the way, from Milwaukee. He had a bad postseason. Actually had a bad year all around last year for Milwaukee. You could have used a guy like that versus a Wesley Matthews that wasn't the greatest version of himself. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't great either. You know, other guys that just literally spot up and shoot. I didn't think George Hill had a good series. There could have been more available dogs for the Bucks. You got Giannis committed in his prime. Like, Giannis is on the record of saying, I don't know where I'll be forever, but the Bucks got me right now. I'm committed to doing it with them right now. He's already won his championship, meaning if he decides to go elsewhere down the line, he doesn't owe Milwaukee nothing, right? He's already delivered on his championship before having to go somewhere else and then come back a la the LeBron, before leaving and having to do it in another place a la the Kevin Durant story. He did it in Milwaukee and didn't have to go anywhere else to do it. So Giannis deserves the absolute most commitment from Milwaukee. You lose Giannis, you go back to a lottery team immediately. Get this man more than Pat Connaughton. Get this man some dogs. You see Chris Middleton going down, pretty much ended your season. Get this man some dogs that can score the basketball, make a play off the dribble.